Cliff and Martha Dickman had 8 children: Debbie, Bob, Linda, Ted, Carolyn, Phil, Dan, and Cindy. 3 of the boys, Bob, Phil, and Dan, worked in and eventually took over the family business of Kessler's Sports Shop. All boys were born and raised in Richmond, Indiana. Growing up in Richmond, the brothers remembered being surrounded by family and friends, lots of playgrounds and ball fields nearby, and childhood jobs such as mowing yards and having a PAL item route every year. The most important lessons learned from their parents were hard work and treating others with respect. They watched their father over the years and how he ran a successful business by working hard and showing respect to anyone he crossed paths with. Bob, Phil, and Dan all graduated from Richmond High School in 1976, 1982, and 1986 respectively. All were Indiana University grads. Bob graduated from IU East with an associate in business administration. Phil received a BA in economics, and Dan received a BS in accounting from IU Bloomington. Kessler's was a sporting goods business that Cliff Dickman purchased in 1958, so the brothers grew up around the family business, working there throughout high school, and it was almost expected that they would eventually take over. However, their interest in making a career out of the family business peaked at different times. Bob knew at the age of 14 that he wanted to work in the family business and started full-time at Kessler's right out of high school in 1976. After the unexpected death of his uncle in 1982, Bob assumed management of the business. During Bob's first years, he determined that they had to grow or they wouldn't survive long-term. In 1984, his father Cliff rejoined the business after 8 years as mayor. They started their growth strategy in 1985, but it really exploded in 1997 to propel Kessler's into the industry spotlight, earning their spot as the largest team sports dealer in the nation. Phil joined the business after graduating from IU in 1986. He moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana, where he guided 3 recently acquired Kessler's locations and stayed there until returning to Richmond in 1990. At that time, the business was on a course for faster growth, and Phil needed to be located at the main offices. Up until this point, they had been in retail and team sales simultaneously, but this had become difficult to sustain. They decided to focus on team sales. After Dan spent about 5 years as an audit manager in Indianapolis, followed by 3 years as director of HR for a company in Atlanta, Georgia, he returned to Richmond in 1997, becoming the CFO of Kessler's Team Sports. In 2004, Kessler's was acquired by BSN Sports. This sale changed the industry completely, and for the past 20 years, the Dickmans have helped BSN Sports grow into one of the largest sporting goods companies in the world. All 3 brothers are still heavily involved in the day-to-day operations of BSN Sports.
In 1997, I joined Kessler Team Sports along with the 5 sales pros that were working with me at the time in Columbus, Ohio. That acquisition started the ball rolling with many others. In Ohio, we furthered our footprint in Illinois that same year. You fast forward to 2004, we were actually the acquirees. What we know today as BSN Sports purchased Kessler's Team Sports, and at the time we had grown into other parts of the country. You fast forward even further into today, 20 some years later, we're still growing through acquisitions, and guess what? The Dickman brothers are first and foremost making those things happen. So the things that they started back in the late 1990s are still happening today, and that's how BSN has become so successful today. What you see from Bob, Phil, and Dan in the community, regardless of what's going on, is this exact same person that you will find in the workplace. They don't have a demanding work style that is a hard-fisted type thing. You want to work with and for these people the way they treat you and the way they conduct themselves in and out of their business days.
They each bring a different skill set to the table. Phil is a strategic thinker, Dan has the financial skills to know how to do it, and Bob, as he would say, has the good looks and vision. Bob has never seen anything with an engine that he didn't like, and since all purchases are a collaboration, Phil reluctantly goes along with it, and Dan usually goes along kicking and screaming all the way.
You know, two words that come to mind when I think about the Dickmans, even the whole family, it's character. They're an unusual family in today's world because, I mean, they bleed character. They're great people. They're great to be around. They care about other people. And my favorite word is loyalty. In a world that needs more loyalty, they are great at loyalty. They appreciate who works with them, who works for them. They appreciate friendships, and you know what? We just get along so well because they're just great people to be around, including their family.
Their involvement in the community has ranged from coaching youth sports to serving on boards. Bob has served with the Richmond Noon Kiwanis Club, Richmond Evening Optimist Club, Wayne County Chamber of Commerce, Richmond City Council, and Wayne County Sheriff's Department Merit Board. Phil has served on the Board of Directors for Wayne County Chamber of Commerce, Main Street Richmond, Boys and Girls Club of Wayne County, Reed Hospital Foundation, Forest Hills Country Club, Richmond Power and Light, and also served one term on Richmond City Council. Dan served on the Main Street Richmond Board for 10 years. They've also been involved with JA through volunteering and sponsoring. Phil was a high school classroom volunteer in the late 90s. Dan and his wife Angie taught a JA program in Atlanta, and then Dan was on the JA board in Richmond for 2 years. And all three are active members of the Seton Catholic Church. They are very proud of their families. Bob and his wife of 43 years, Rhonda, have 3 children, Katie, Jane, and Samuel, and 6 grandchildren, Nora, Margot, Ellen, Gus, Tucker, and Fitz. Phil and his wife of 35 years, Millie, have 3 children, Henry, Lillian, and George, and 1 grandchild, Arthur. Dan and his wife Angie, married for 31 years, have 3 children, Cliff, Sarah, and Nathan. Both their immediate and extended family have been a huge support for them throughout the years, and they feel fortunate to have worked alongside each other, their parents, and other siblings during their career. They said everyone got along so well together. In fact, Dan says they never argue over business. They each knew their roles and trusted the others. Other than spending time with their families, they also enjoy hobbies such as boating, camping, pickleball, skiing, attending sporting events, and flying. Bob learned how to fly planes and then used that to help grow the business. Dan says some of the most exciting times in business were the trips taken in the small airplanes, flying around the country, acquiring team dealers. They did 12 acquisitions in 6 years.
Bob, Phil, and Dan are excellent business people and great stewards of our community. They grew up here, worked here, and Richmond will always be their home. The sporting goods industry has been very good to them. It has introduced them to people that most of us will never get a chance to meet. They are very well respected in the industry, and it has been a great career choice for each of them.
In addition to their families, they recognize many others who have supported them along the way. Some of the most important are their employees, who quickly became their key to success. They built a strong team and empowered them. They all had a desire to serve customers to their very best ability. The brothers hope people remember that Kessler's was a good place to shop and work, and that it was managed with respect for others, competitive but fair, and with the acquired instinct to seize new opportunities. Junior Achievement is proud to honor 3 of this year's laureates for their 2024 Business Hall of Fame: Bob, Phil, and Dan Dickman.